Even as we grieve, we give thanks for this most faithful life. I am deeply aware of this great inheritance and of the duties and heavy responsibilities.
There comes a moment in the life of every leader, whether they lead a country, a company, a family, or an institution, when they look at what is happening around them and make a decision that changes everything. Not a decision born of weakness, not a surrender, but a recognition that the situation has reached a point where the most important thing they can do is ensure that someone they trust completely is standing in the right place with the right authority when the next wave hits. It is the decision of a person who is thinking beyond themselves, beyond the present moment, beyond the immediate crisis, toward the question that matters most when the dust settles. Who is going to hold this together? For King Charles III, that question has been building for months. His health has been the subject of careful public management and considerable private anxiety inside the palace since his cancer diagnosis became public in early 2024. His reign has been tested by pressures that would have challenged any monarch. A disruptive younger son, a brother under criminal investigation, a queen whose past continues to generate controversy at the moments the palace can least afford it. And then, in the second week of March 2026, a new crisis arrived. One that struck closer to the center of the reign than anything that had come before it. A scandal involving Queen Camilla. The details of that scandal, what was alleged, what was confirmed, what the palace knew and when, are what we are going to examine in full today. But the most significant consequence of those details was not the scandal itself. It was what King Charles did in response to it. On the morning of March 14th, 2026, King Charles III took a step that royal watchers and constitutional experts are describing as one of the most consequential decisions of his reign. He handed final authority over the management of the palace's response and over a significantly expanded set of institutional decisions to Prince William. Not temporarily, not as a crisis management measure, as a formal, documented transfer of authority that those close to the palace are describing as permanent. Today we are going to tell you exactly what happened, what the Camilla scandal involved, why it forced Charles's hand in a way that earlier crises had not, what it means for William to now hold the authority he has been given, and what all of it tells us about the future of the House of Windsor under a king who is, with great clarity and great difficulty, preparing for what comes after him. We are going to take our time with this, because this is a story that matters, and you deserve to have it explained properly. So settle in, and let's begin. To understand the significance of what Charles did on March 14th, you first need to understand the context into which the Camilla scandal arrived, because it did not land in calm waters. It landed in the middle of one of the most turbulent periods the palace has navigated since the death of Queen Elizabeth. The first weeks of March 2026 had already delivered a series of serious blows to the institution. Prince Harry's court case against the Daily Mail had collapsed in the final days of February when his central witness admitted in open court that the evidence he had provided was fabricated. On March 4th, Harry's California legal team sent a $59 million bill to Buckingham Palace demanding that King Charles cover the costs of the failed lawsuit. Charles rejected it the same day, publicly and finally. On March 9th, the palace formally rejected Harry's proposal for a hybrid return to royal duties, a plan Harry had submitted in the final week of February in what sources describe as a desperate attempt to find financial and institutional stability. That rejection confirmed what many had suspected for some time, that the path back for Harry was not a matter of months, but of years, if it existed at all. Prince Andrew remained under the shadow of the Epstein-related investigation that had led to his arrest in February 2026. His situation was unresolved, his future as a resident of Royal Lodge uncertain, and his presence in any institutional conversation a source of continuous reputational risk for the palace. Princess Anne, who sources close to her household described as quietly devastated by a series of institutional decisions that had not gone in her favour, including inheritance provisions related to Balmoral that had become known to her in early March, had withdrawn from a number of planned engagements. And King Charles himself was managing all of this against the backdrop of a health situation that, while publicly described as stable, was privately understood by those close to him to be consuming significant energy and requiring ongoing medical management. The palace, in other words, was already stretched, already navigating more simultaneous crises than its when of any communications infrastructure was designed to handle, already relying heavily on William and Catherine to provide the stable, dignified public presence that the institution needed while so much else was in turmoil. And into that environment, on the morning of March 11th, 2026, came the first reports of what would become known inside the palace as the Camilla situation. Now, if this is your first time watching this channel and you want to follow this story all the way through as it develops, and it is developing quickly, please hit the subscribe button right now. We cover the royal family in the depth and detail these stories deserve. We want you to have every piece of it as it emerges. Subscribing takes just a moment, and it means every new video comes straight to you. Let's talk about what the Camilla scandal actually involved, because it is important to be precise about this, to separate what has been confirmed, what has been reported, and what remains in the realm of allegation. Your intelligence deserves that precision. The situation that began to circulate on March 11th, 2026, through a combination of British tabloid reporting and sourced briefings to trusted royal journalists, centred on Queen Camilla's activities during a private visit to the south of France in late February 2026. A visit that had been described to the palace's communications team as a personal rest trip, a few days away from the demands of royal duties, and that had been approved and scheduled as such. What emerged was that the visit had involved a series of private meetings with individuals whose connection to Camilla and whose interests in relation to the crown were not disclosed to the palace before the trip took place. The specific allegations varied across different reports. Some focused on financial relationships, suggestions that Camilla had met with commercial interests that had potential connections to patronages and charitable appointments she held in her official capacity as Queen. Others focused on the presence at those meetings of individuals whose backgrounds, when examined by palace security and intelligence advisors, raised questions that had not been considered before the trip was approved. One specific allegation that appeared in two separate sourced reports on March 12, 2026, the day after the initial reporting began, was that among the individuals Camilla met during the south of France visit was a person with documented prior connections to financial interests that had previously sought official royal endorsement and been declined. That allegation, if substantiated, would not necessarily constitute a criminal matter, but it would constitute a serious breach of the protocols that govern how senior working royals manage their private activities to ensure they do not create conflicts of interest, real or perceived, with their official roles. The palace's initial response to the first wave of reporting was the standard one. A spokesperson said that the reports contained numerous inaccuracies and that Her Majesty's private schedule was exactly that, private. No specifics were addressed. No details were confirmed or denied. That response, in the context of everything else the palace was managing at the time, was not sufficient to stop the story. By the morning of March 13th, 2026, the coverage had expanded significantly. 3 major British newspapers were carrying versions of the story. 2 American publications had picked it up. The questions being asked by journalists were no longer general ones about Camilla's schedule. They were specific ones about the individuals she had met, the nature of the conversations, and what the palace had known. The palace's communications team, which had been stretched across multiple simultaneous crises since the beginning of the month, found itself unable to manage the volume and the specificity of the incoming questions in a way that was containing the story. And it was at that point, the evening of March 13th, 2026, according to sources close to the palace, that Charles made his decision. He called William. The conversation, which sources describe as lasting approximately 40 minutes, covered the immediate situation and the steps required to manage it. But it covered something else as well, something that had been building in Charles's thinking for considerably longer than the current crisis. The question of authority, and who needed to hold it. Let's talk about what that authority transfer actually means, because the phrase final authority can sound abstract until you understand what it is authority over. In the management of the British royal family, there are layers of decision-making that operate simultaneously. There are the formal constitutional functions of the monarchy, the state opening of Parliament, the receiving of prime ministers, the signing of official documents, the granting of royal assent. Those functions remain with the monarch and cannot be delegated except through formal regency arrangements that require Act of Parliament. But there is a second, equally important layer, the institutional management layer. The decisions about how the palace responds to crises, how communications are handled, which stories are addressed and which are left unanswered, how the family's public schedule is arranged, which patronages and institutional affiliations are approved or declined, how disputes between family members and the institution are managed. These decisions do not require constitutional authority. They require institutional authority, the recognized right to make binding decisions about how the organisation operates day to day. For most of Charles's reign, those decisions have been made through a combination of Charles's own judgment, his private secretary's guidance, and the collective input of the palace's senior advisors. William has been increasingly involved in that process as the heir to the throne. But his involvement had been advisory rather than decisive, consulted rather than authoritative. What changed on March 14th, 2026, is that his involvement became authoritative. In a formal memorandum, a documented internal communication that sources describe as carefully and deliberately worded, Charles transferred to William the final authority over a defined set of institutional decisions: crisis communications management. The approval of senior staff appointments within the palace's communications and private secretary structure. The management of any matters involving family members other than Charles and Camilla themselves in their direct official capacities. Read that last item again. The management of any matters involving family members. That means Harry. It means Andrew. It means the ongoing management of the institutional consequences of everything that has happened in those two situations over the past several years. And it means that going forward, the decisions about how the palace responds to those situations will be made not by Charles, a father whose judgment about his sons has, by his own implicit acknowledgement, not always been as clear-eyed as the institution required, but by William, a man whose investment in the institution's future is total and whose emotional distance from the Harry and Andrew situations is considerably greater. That is a very significant shift, and everyone inside the palace understands exactly what it means. Let's take a moment here. We're at the midpoint of this story, and what follows is a section that I think tells you most clearly what this authority transfer means in practice, for William, for Camilla, for the institution, and for the family. If you are finding this as important as we do, please share this video with someone who follows the royal family and who would want to have this explained properly. Sharing takes just a moment, and it genuinely helps us reach more people. Thank you. Now let's talk about why Charles did this. Not just in response to the immediate Camilla crisis, but in the broader sense. Because the decision did not come from nowhere. It was, in the view of those who know Charles well, the culmination of a process of thinking that had been developing for some time. The first reason is health. Charles's cancer diagnosis has altered the atmosphere inside the palace in ways that those who work there describe as profound. Not because Charles is incapacitated, he is not, but because the awareness of finite time has sharpened the questions about transition in a way that the natural confidence of good health tends to defer. Charles wants to ensure that when the transition comes, whether it is years away or closer than that, the institution is not caught unprepared. That William is not just theoretically ready to reign, but is operationally practiced in the decisions that a monarch has to make. The authority transfer is, in part, a training exercise, a deliberate and documented process of giving William the experience of final authority while Charles is still here to observe and advise. The second reason is the cumulative weight of the crises of early 2026. Charles has managed, with considerable dignity and considerable personal cost, the simultaneous unravelling of his younger son's commercial and legal strategy, his brother's arrest and disgrace, his sister's quiet hurt at institutional decisions that felt like betrayals, and now a controversy involving the woman he loves. Each of those situations has required energy, each has required judgment, and the combination of all of them at once has produced a drain that even a man of Charles's discipline and resilience feels. Delegating the management of those ongoing situations to William is not an admission of failure. It is a recognition that one person, even a king, cannot carry everything, and that the person who will carry the institution after him should begin carrying more of it now. The third reason is Camilla, and this is the most delicate to address, but the most important to understand. Charles's love for Camilla is one of the fixed points of his life. It has been tested severely, publicly, repeatedly, and it has never broken. His decision to marry her, taken against considerable institutional and public resistance, was the most personally consequential choice of his life. He has never regretted it. But the Camilla situation of March 2026 has, by all accounts, placed Charles in a position that is genuinely painful. Because the crisis it created, whatever its ultimate resolution, is not one that he can manage with the same clear-eyed objectivity he brings to other institutional challenges. His emotional proximity to Camilla is too great. His desire to protect her, too strong. His capacity to make coldly rational decisions about a situation that involves the person he loves most is limited in ways that he is self-aware enough to acknowledge. By giving William the authority to manage the institutional response, Charles is doing something that is both strategically wise and personally honest. He is acknowledging that his judgment in matters involving Camilla is not the most reliable judgment available. And he is putting the management of the consequences in the hands of someone whose judgment is less compromised. That is not weakness. That is the kind of self-knowledge that very few people in positions of power are capable of. It is one of the most quietly impressive things Charles has done in his reign. Now let's talk about William, because this authority transfer changes his position in a way that goes beyond the immediate crisis and has implications for how the rest of Charles's reign unfolds. William is 43 years old. He has spent his entire adult life preparing to be king, learning the constitutional functions, building the institutional relationships, developing the judgment and the temperament that the role requires. He has done that preparation with a seriousness and a consistency that those who work with him describe as remarkable. But preparation and authority are different things. You can prepare thoroughly for a role and still not fully inhabit it until the authority is genuinely yours, until the decisions you make are truly final, until there is no higher level to which a disagreement can be appealed. On March 14, 2026, William acquired that authority over a defined and significant set of institutional decisions. And the people who know him say that the change it produces in how he operates, in the confidence and the decisiveness with which he moves through institutional problems, is already visible to those who work alongside him. He has wasted no time. Within 48 hours of the authority transfer, William had convened a meeting of the palace's senior communications advisors to review the strategy for managing the ongoing reporting about Camilla's south of France visit. He had made decisions about what to address and what to leave unanswered. He had approved a revised communications protocol that governs how the palace responds to stories involving members of the extended family. None of those decisions were referred back to Charles for approval. They were made by William, finally and bindingly. That is new. And everyone who works in the palace knows it is new. The reign of William V has not started yet, but the preparation for it is no longer only preparation. It is already, in the ways that matter most, beginning. And the man who made that possible, who had the self-awareness and the institutional wisdom to begin the transition before the transition was forced upon him, is still the king. He will carry that title for as long as he carries anything. And the institution he loves will be better prepared for what comes after him because of what he did in that 40-minute phone call on the evening of March 13th, 2026. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end today. This is one of the most significant royal stories we have covered on this channel, and we are genuinely grateful to everyone who stayed with it through all of it. If it gave you something to think about, please leave us a comment below. Tell us what you think about Charles handing authority to William. Do you think it is the right decision? And do you believe William is ready for what it means? We read every comment, and your thoughts genuinely matter to us. And if you're not yet subscribed, please do it now. Click the subscribe button, turn on your notifications, and we will make sure you never miss a single development as this story continues. We're here every day, and we are grateful every day for every one of you who watches. Thank you. We will see you in the next one.